Welcome everyone to Macquarie University Art Gallery. Really happy that you could make it to this amazing exhibition. First, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which the Australian campuses of Macquarie University are situated. I would like to invite Senior Direct Man, Uncle Lex Dad, to perform the Welcome to Country.
Budgeringani, ladies and gentlemen, that's good evening in Darug language. First off, I'd like to pay respects to my elders, both past and present. I'd like to honour my ancestors and pay respects to Mother Earth, Muka, we call Sky Father, and ask the good Wirrigans, they're the spirits, to come in and make this a beautiful exhibition. Now, I always like to explain a welcome to country because people don't know, well, a lot of people don't know what a welcome to country means and why we do it. In Australia, there's over 300 different languages and over 300 different countries. And boundaries were respected. I live up in the mountains, in the Blue Mountains, and that's on the borders of Darug land. And if I wanted to go over the top of the mountain into Wiradjuri country, I would go and sit on the borders traditionally and light a fire and send up smoke. Now, I could wait there for up to 2 weeks and they would come and ask of my business. I could be travelling through land to gather more stories for my people, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, or to meet for important ceremony. Now, they would tell me the rules of the country, that what animals I could hunt, or if I was allowed to hunt at all, because there could be scarceness with animals or food as such. And they would tell me the rules of their land. And then there would be a great ceremony or a celebration that would follow. Today, we like to carry on that tradition because it's been happening in this right throughout Australia for thousands and thousands of years. And as I look around at this exhibition, it reminds me of the stories that I hear from my old people: transit, time, motion, and art. And when people look at our art throughout the countries, with our rock engravings and our paintings on the caves, they look at it as just art. But we look at it as our stories and our religion and the way we walk through to gather more stories for our people. See, when you're initiated into manhood or into womanhood at around the age of 13, and people call it, the Europeans call it walkabout, and they think it's just aimlessly walking off and going anywhere over the country. But it's actually to gather more stories and more knowledge for your people on how to live a better way of life in harmony with Mother and to look after one another. Because Aboriginal people don't believe we own the land, we belong to the land. And it's not about the one, it's about the whole, and about looking after and sharing. And I can see that with this exhibition tonight. It has a correlation with us Indigenous people. So without further ado, I'd like to say Wadami, welcome to Wadamadigal country, part of the Darug Nation, Didjurigur, and thank you.
Lex is an amazing artist also, and do look him up and explore his art because, I mean, it's quite extraordinary. I'm Rhonda Davis. If you don't already know me, hi, I'm curator here at the gallery. Thanks, Lex. Along with my wonderful colleague Leonard. And I mean, often people talk about putting on a show as akin to a theatre production. There's a lot of work behind putting an exhibition together. There's a lot of conceptual work and planning. And I mean, without Leonard, Ian Brew, Aditi, Gina Hammond, Andrew Simpson, that I'm about to introduce, shows like this just don't happen. There's a lot of hard work. And I'll be talking about that a little further in a moment. But I want to welcome the artists especially. This is a long-awaited exhibition. We've been wanting this show since about 2009, 2010. It's an internationally travelling show, touring, and Meredith Bryce, Stephen Copeland, Kari Dahl and Colin Rainey And this show, Transit, is about those slippages in between that we, as all journeymen here, women, children, men, we take different pathways. And along those pathways, we pick up a lot of stories. And the artwork here tonight sort of reflects this itinerant practice, the journey, connection to place and people and those relationships. I want to talk a little bit about Andrew Simpson, and whilst he has outstanding credentials as the Director of Museum Studies and a professional art worker extraordinaire, I'd really like to tell you something about him from my own personal viewpoint. We both started here at Macquarie University working in 1999, that was a while ago, and I met him upstairs in an office just above here, and I thought, my God, this scientist, he's talking about art and he's got passion, and I mean, he's talking about working together in a cross-disciplinary way. Now, this was really, I want to hang around with this guy because he's going to go places. And I mean, he's the most supportive academic I've ever come across in this university. He lends support, intellectual support, on a constant basis. He spends a lot of time with students. He's a great mentor. He's a great friend. He's a great colleague. And I could ravel on about him somewhat, longer, but I'd really like to welcome Andrew tonight because we're very honoured for him to open this exhibition of Transit. Thank you, Dr. Andrew Simpson.
Goodness me, Rhonda, how embarrassing. I just enjoy hanging out in the gallery because there's so many interesting people down here. I didn't realise I'd done things like that. Thank you very much for that rather over-the-top introduction. It was delightful. Thank you also to Lex for his fantastic welcome to country. And what Lex has said resonates so strongly with this show that we're launching here tonight. It is a spectacular show, and it's a great pleasure to be given the opportunity to open it this evening. And it's wonderful to see so many people here. As Rhonda mentioned, I'm the Director of Museum Studies at Macquarie University. Yes, we do have a program. It's in transit at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, but that's another story, and we're not here to talk about that tonight, thank heavens. Don't start me on the subject either. Transit, of course, is a state of flux, motion, uncertainty, of being between places, being between times, being between major events, a passage from one to the other. It is in fact the very basis of existence because we are, of course, constantly in transit. Now, this is an important exhibition in a lot of ways, and a very, very interesting one, because it asks some very, very big questions. I'm a great fan of the work of these four people, and I think that they have nailed some of the questions that desperately need to be explored today by our modern society. And as an exhibition, structurally, it's also remarkable. And by that I mean because it's based on the artistic and curatorial collaboration between two pairs of very talented artistic practitioners. It's the result of their time working together immersed in a different culture, time spent together in the United Arab Emirates. Now, I've only ever been to the Middle East on one occasion, and I'll never forget when I actually arrived there. I was flying into Tehran Airport, never been to that part of the world before, and I discovered, after a long flight, sort of miserable wet morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, a big queue to the customs at Tehran Airport. Signs up, welcome to Iran, etc. And everyone in the line in front of me recognised that I was different. I wasn't from that place. And so what they did was they said, you're a guest, you're our guest, you must go in front of me, in front of the line. And I was ushered right up to the very front of the line and was the first one through customs off that flight. Because I was different. Because I wasn't from that place, I was treated differently. Wouldn't it be nice if we treated people who visited Australia the same way? Some reason I just haven't had that experience at Mascot. It just doesn't happen. But it's interesting, and it's something I'll never forget, and it's something that I remember when I think about the work that's on show here today. Stephen Copeland, Mary Bryce, Carrie Dahl and Colin Rainey have together produced a stunning piece of cross-cultural discourse. It's resonant with themes of migration, trans-global identity and the transitory and shifting boundaries by which we attempt to understand not only others but ourselves. Exploring the curatorial themes of this exhibition is both a challenge and a delight, I believe. For example, Stephen Copeland's work up the other end of the space here, Transcultural Wanderings, captures fragments of identity and is essentially a kind of a classification of experience, a taxonomy of identity itself, if you like. In other words, it's all about people in transit, people sort of reshaping themselves because of their experiences. Of course, in this space, it works so well because it's beautifully juxtaposed with this work here, Mary Bryce's work, Nature in Transit, soft sculptural forms, in other words, a classification of ephemeral shapes, a taxonomy of nature. And in fact, throughout this whole exhibition, there is this axis of nature and culture, which I think is absolutely superb. And if you compare just those two works, you can see in them nature reflecting the culture and vice versa. I think it's a very, very clever piece of art curatorship and art practice myself. I think it's quite stunning. And this culture-nature axis, as I mentioned, runs through all the ideas presented in this exhibition. Carrie Dahl's woven pieces that make up Dependent in three parts, namely departure, travel and landfall. They kind of are resonant of the increasing complexity when you embed yourself in something new, an unfamiliar experience, an unfamiliar culture. Increasing in complexity but also increasing understanding at the same time. And if you look at those works, they are absolutely spectacularly beautiful. The more you look at them, the more drawn in you are to the complexity and the interrelationships in each singular piece of work. Absolutely stunning stuff. And Colin Rainey's exploration of the concept of home down the other end of the gallery is another very, very clever piece of work. The concept of home, the inside and the outside of a place as a psychological diagram. And throughout the show, everywhere, shoes! What's that all about, I wonder? Perhaps it's a metaphor for something that both connects us to a point in time and space, but also something that enables us to transition through time and space. So that's, on my sort of very primitive understanding, how I would sort of take the meaning behind those works. And you'll take different meanings from the works yourselves, I'm sure. And this exhibition provokes so many interesting and different thoughts. Why I reckon these questions that underlie this exhibition are truly the biggest and the most urgent questions we need to ask, I think it's pretty obvious actually, because there are billions of people on this planet with an incredible diversity of culture, language, worldviews and heritage. We don't just need to preserve that diversity, we actually must not only ask questions of it, we must actually live it and celebrate it and become transformed ourselves in the doing of that. If we don't do that, we're actually condemned to a fairly bleak and miserable future. It's imperative that we engage in cross-cultural discourse. It's so easy to be complacent and not think and simply accept the sort of two-dimensional stereotypical views that we have dished up to us every day in the daily news cycle, and it's too easy to dismiss the unfamiliar, the challenging and the different as not worthy of knowing. We fall into that trap, we've lost the battle from the very start. Globalisation has increased our connectivity, and with that comes the responsibility to engage, to ask questions, to learn and to fundamentally change ourselves. We're in this process where we need to drive forward into a complex new set of cross-cultural ecologies. It's the only way we'll survive. Anyone here remember the Asian Century White Paper? No, I didn't think so. Okay. Same questions, same imperatives, but through a government document. Okay, so our artists have essentially operated as a learning collaborative. They've asked those questions, taken those risks, and through their practice now share the results with us. It's transformed them in the process, and it will transform their audience, and it has been transforming their audiences. It'll take you to some very interesting new places, and I'd just like to read very briefly where it took me when I first learnt about this work. And I won't read the whole thing because I'll be here all evening. Time's arrow propels us through a continuum from one state to another, each instant rich with an infinity of possibilities, new landscapes, new meanings, new contexts, and new understanding. The shock of the unknown, the temporary and the transient hold a spectrum of meanings for those who understand where they come from, but don't always know where they're going. Transit is a state of mind. It can be an open clearing, a refuge between tumultuous worlds or events. It can be the uncertainty between day and night, the counterbalance between thought and action. It can be both a moment of clarity and a moment of confusion, the moment between life and death, engagement, enrichment and epiphany, the very fabric of existence. Now, the exhibition also itself has a transglobal history because it's travelled from Qatar to Singapore and it's now in Sydney, and Rhonda explained how it's been long awaited and long anticipated coming to Sydney, and we're delighted that it's here. Interestingly, and very appropriately, it's been exhibited at each one of those places in a university art gallery space. And I reckon this is important and significant. Like our artists who have essentially acted as a learning collaborative themselves through their practice, universities are also learning collectives. All universities, including Macquarie, are in a state of transit, ladies and gentlemen. But in a rapidly changing world, those universities that become hidebound in traditional silos of academic disciplines, those universities that fail to ask questions, fail to take risks, ignore the potential of interdisciplinary spaces, those universities that base their decisions only on the sterile and shifting sands of barren metrics, those universities will find their creativity congeal and they will lose their ability to transform themselves. They will cease to be universities. They'll cease to be what they were set up to originally do. In the neoliberal world of higher education these days, too many universities essentially cover the walls of their gallery spaces with corporate wallpaper in an attempt to effect a delusional grand narrative about the power and significance of their institution. Self-referential rubbish, I say. And a criminal misuse of space. University art galleries need to be experimental learning laboratories, a place of discourse where new ideas, new challenges, new questions are asked and answered head on. As places of discourse and intercultural exchange and engagement, these spaces are the future incubators of meaningful understanding and active citizenship. They are essentially transcendent portals to other worlds. We are certainly blessed here at Macquarie University that our gallery is consistently used in this way, and this exhibition is a magnificent example of that. My congratulations to the artists. Thank you everyone for coming this evening. My thanks also to my student, Chrissy Moore, for the magnificent effort that she has put in helping to pull the logistics of this exhibition together. She's done a spectacular job. So, Rhonda...
Yes, look, I told you this guy's passionate, but he got a little bit scary, theatrical then. I've got to calm him down with a drink, because I think he actually does like an occasional drink. And actually, he's a good poet. It's very poetic what he read out and what he wrote in that book. Thank you, Dr. Andrew. Beautiful. Okay, so I would also especially like to acknowledge again Leonard, Ian, Gina, Aditi and Rocket's amazing work for each and every show we present at the gallery. It certainly takes a lot of planning and energy, lots of energy in producing these shows. My hat off to the artists, the 4 artists, Meredith. Amazing, amazing. We're just really over the moon about this show. But most of all tonight we would like to thank Chrissy Moore for her diligent and dedicated work in coordinating transit for the Macquarie leg of its international tour. So I do thank you very much, Christy. One more thing, I'm going to do a little brag here. Our museums and collections have now been included on a list of the 30 of the most amazing university museums, selected by the best colleges online. The editors, yeah.